Today we're looking at one of my favorite colors, which is green earth. There are two different real types of green earth. You've either got the traditional PG23 version, or there are some companies that make a synthetic version, which is a blend of pigments, and I have both in my palette. As a color goes, it is by far my favorite green, and because of that I have many of them. There are probably 40 plus variations of green earth. I have 7, I want to say, in my palette that are the PG23 version. And so depending on where it's harvested in the world, the color is going to look totally different. And I think that's why some of the bigger companies do a synthetic version that's a mix of other pigments that sort of emulate the color. Daniel Smith does do a actual version, but I've never actually found a tube in store and never been able to order it online either. Winsor & Newton, I believe, is a mix. Schmincke is a mix. White Nights is a mix. So any of the big brands do a mix because there's so little consistency in the pigment color. I personally love that, and that's why I have so many of them. So what I wanted to look at today was the ones that are the actual colors, and then the two that I have that are a mix, because they are all different in how they look, which is why I have so many, and I'm always looking to add new PG23s to my palette. It is my favorite pigment by far. That's why I have so many. You don't need this many. Most people could probably get away with 1, maybe 2, but I love it as a color, and so I think it's a really cool color to look at. So I'm going to label, and then we're going to get into some swatching, because that's the best part of doing these videos. So like a lot of other natural colors, green earth does take a little bit to activate, so I did re-wet them while I was writing up my swatches. But there is going to be a lot of color variation. Some of these are going to look super, super green, and some of them look almost brown. It just depends on really the pigment, where it was harvested. And that's what I think makes this color so cool, is that you can have so many variations of this color. So toad is very brown, where moss is very, very green. These first 4 are all different variations that Cosmic Creations has in her shop, because Laura enjoys feeding my pigment collection of interesting things. This one is another one that's pretty bright, but is a bit moodier in its color. Then we have Pickle, which is, I would say, the most green. I would say Pickle's the version. Moss and Pickle get used the most, because moss you can do like really light trees with, but Pickle, if I'm doing like a moody painting, I'll use as a color. And then we move into Stone Ground, who I like their version of it. Their formula is harder than a lot of other small shops though. And so with a hard pigment, I find it a bit more difficult to activate than I'd like, but it's fine. I like the color. It's quite different from these ones we've got so far. Then we've got the Roman Szmal version. Roman Szmal has 2 versions in their lineup currently. They've got sort of a medium greeny brown version that I put with my yellow greens. So all of these ones currently are housed with my yellow greens, just because I feel like that's where they sit in my palette the best. As a green, it is incredibly granulating. I'd say the least granulating I probably have is Green Fog, or maybe Moss. And then we have Green Earth by Roman Szmal. This one is actually labeled Green Earth, and it is so different from all the other versions I have, and I love it because even super wash out, it's such a pretty color. It's just so stunning, and it's so different than these, and that's what I love about it as a pigment. Every color that's on the page right now is the same pigment. It's the same pigment number. The only thing that's different is where the pigment's been harvested, which is super unique about it as a pigment. There are other pigments like PBR7 that do have a lot of color variation. Even Potter's Pink has a tremendous amount of color variation. I don't think any pigment comes close to the amount of color variation PG23 has. I have yet to see two brands PG23 that are identical, and I will keep collecting variations of PG23 because I just think it's ridiculously cool. Next, we've got the Schmincke version, which is a mixture of PBR7 and PG7. My issue with this one is it's too green. If you look at even washed out with water, if it washed out with a whole bunch of water, it's closer. But in the full mass tone, it's just too green, in my opinion. Like, it's too bright. And then we have the White Nights version, which I do like. It feels sort of closer to what a PG23 is than the Schmincke version in my mind. Like, it feels, it's like got the right undertones to it. And much like the Potter's Pink video, for the sake of looking at the colors that make up the mixes, I have them pulled, or I have a version of each pulled. So that's PBR7. This is PG7, which is Holbein Viridian Hue in this case. Oh, that was Roman Szmal Cyprus Umber Deep. Oh, Cyprus Raw Umber. Cyprus Raw Umber Deep. Tongue twister. And this is PG17, and in this case it's the Cosmic Creations version, which is Avocado. Let's see if I can just spin that down, and a little touch of green. Need a tiny bit more green. Yep, now we're too green. Normally I mix on a palette, but there aren't that many to mix. I'd say that's pretty close to what Schmincke has. So it is quite possible to do the mixed versions. I don't think you get as nice of a version as the actual versions. I didn't leave quite enough space up there. Let's do it in this very small section. I think the nice thing about the pure version is that you have all that color variation naturally, whereas the mixtures, like, the mixtures feel muddier, even the store brand ones. And I get why they do it, because there is all this variation in a single pigment. At the same time, it sort of feels like a cop-out. Like, if Roman Szmal is willing to have two versions of a color, of the color, because it's the way that they've been able to do it, like, are you really telling me that Schmincke can't do a genuine version of this color? That's not far off. If I had to choose, if I was building a palette and I was choosing two versions, I wouldn't choose two, I'd choose three. And they would be moss, pickle, okay, 1 second. Is that moss? That is moss. Moss, pickle, and I think maybe not. I was thinking this Roman Szmal version here, but maybe it's too close to pickle. This version. Oh yeah, okay. I would choose moss, pickle, and then the Roman Szmal green earth. I think that as colors go, so ignore that last one. I think as colors go, they're the most fun of the versions. And they also are just incredibly interesting as a pigment. If there are other colors you want to see me do a video like this on, I've already covered PG23. I will link that video above. I've done a couple videos on mixing grays, and those were fun and challenging and are one of my favorite brain exercises. And if there are other pigments you want to see me cover, let me know which they are, because I do enjoy doing these pigment videos. They're super fun. I enjoy doing trying to create the mixes from the pigment list. It is a fun challenge. My collection of single pigment colors is growing, so there are very few colors I can't make anymore. But as always, thank you for watching, and let me know down below what you want to see next.